She was a well-behaved child.
She had average grades with satisfactory citizenship.
One day I came home and she was going to bring a cow into the house. It was raining. And this cow was mooing out there in the field, and she felt very sorry for her. And I explained to her that the cow wasn't mooing because it was raining. It was mooing for some other reason, for sure. And we didn't want the cow in the house.
She wanted to be a wife. She wanted to have children.
She wanted to be wanted. That was the main thing. And I guess she thought if she were a movie star, she'd be loved.
Most people want something from you, and she was always suspicious that people wanted something from her.
She had a sort of a acquiescent loser's philosophy. She had the greatest figure I think I've ever seen in my life, to this day. And I've seen a few of them.
If she could have settled to just be sort of a blonde movie star, you know, if she was dumber, she would have been happier.
The world called her Marilyn, as if it knew her well. And perhaps it did. Behind the grotesque sex goddess of the Hollywood glamour factory, the public recognized a more human figure. The game loser, trying to beat the odds. But the real Marilyn Monroe forever remained shadowy and elusive, even to Marilyn. Throughout her life, she pursued an endless search for a missing person, herself. This is the story of that search, the legend of Marilyn Monroe. Lover, the camera followed her everywhere, on her tours and journeys, her weddings and honeymoons, her interviews and publicity stunts. For Marilyn Monroe was an authentic star with her own bubbling, wide-eyed, innocent style, and above all, a magical inner radiance. She behaved like a star. There were the kisses blown to her fans, the public strut and wiggle. Behind the dazzle, the camera's pitiless curiosity also had exposed a face without makeup, a face haunted by private torment. Yet few suspected that her hidden wounds might be mortal. Then came that hushed morning with its gallery of newsmen waiting in the thin sunshine. The appearance of death, unbelievable as always. And the unanswerable question, why?
I'm John Huston. By chance, I directed Marilyn Monroe's first major film, as well as her last. Marilyn had a strange, startling impact on the world. Even today, across the headlines of far greater events, her gentle, haunted image continues to appear. At her death, the world had looked for villains. It found only the troubling truths that life can be unfair and cruel, that we see human despair too late, that courage is not always enough. If bravery is measured by the fear it must overcome, then Marilyn's courage was great indeed. She was swept by panics. Her life was a continuing crisis.
It began in Los Angeles, and at once became a struggle for identity. Bits of her fragmented childhood now are scattered in the memory of obscure witnesses. and in the public ledgers of heartbreak and human failure. Although she grew up as Norma Jeane Baker, her mother's last name by an early broken marriage, the birth certificate carried the name of Mortensen. It was an invention. She was illegitimate. Born June 1st, 1926, in the charity ward of the Los Angeles County Hospital, Norma Jeane was taken 12 days later to a home in outlying Hawthorne. There she was placed in the hands of Ida Bolander, who, with her husband Albert, would act as foster parent for 8 years. At 10 months, violence shook the baby's world when her grandmother, Della Monroe, went berserk.
She did come over one day, and for no reason that I know of, she just broke in the glass on our front door. And I believe we called the police, didn't we? Something happened.
Still in the old neighborhood, the Bollanders looked back on the hard years when boarding children helped earn a living.
We took her to Sunday school with us. Lots of times I not only had her and my own son, but I had other children too with me. So I couldn't always go because I couldn't have a haul of, 4 or 5 children at church with me, but they went to Sunday school if they were able.
Seldom alone, Norma Jeane lived in a floating world of transitory relationships. 13 foster brothers and sisters came and went. Grown-ups appeared, disappeared. It was hard to know what was real, what to trust, even parents. Later, Marilyn said,
one morning I referred to the woman as Mama, and she said, I'm not your mother. Don't call me mother anymore. Call me Aunt so-and-so. But the one I was concerned was her husband. I said, but he's my daddy. She said, no.
Joy had been a random thing for Marilyn's mother, a young film laboratory worker. Gladys Baker's first 2 children had been taken by a former husband. Although she scrupulously paid $25 per month for her baby's care and took the child on outings, she remained a disturbing figure at the edge of Norma Jeane's world. Norma Jeane went to live with her mother, who had managed to make a down payment on a house near the Hollywood Bowl. Its most prized furnishing, a white baby grand piano. There was a rare, smiling photograph. One child, one mother.
We only had the home for about, I don't even think it was 3 months, because she was taken away, my mother.
Paradise was lost. Gladys Baker vanished behind the dark barrier of mental illness. Today, a gray, handsome little woman, she often strolls with Inez Melson, her guardian, at the sanatorium, where she lives under the provisions of Marilyn's will. But Marilyn herself is only a shadowed memory. Norma Jeane's new home was a private orphanage in Hollywood. Now she was one child among 60.
I could read at 10. I saw orphans, and I put my feet down on the sidewalk. They had to drag me in like I'm not an orphan. I used to sit up in the window and cry because I'd look over and I'd see RKO, and I knew my mother had worked there. She'd been a cutter there.
Norma Jeane's world was drab and perplexing. But already, across her daydreams, glistened the fabled towers of Hollywood make-believe. Outwardly, she was learning to be what others wanted her to be. Her real life was spent in that inner world, where, as she said, you can make your own boundaries.
I didn't have enough to get into the movie, but I used to spend the whole afternoon, many Saturday afternoons, trying to fit my foot in a print that was usually too big. And also I would get down and measure my hand, and always they seemed a little large. I don't know, they had very small feet and small hands. I became very discouraged at an early age.
A friend of her mother, Grace McKee, became her guardian. When Grace married Irvin, Doc Goddard, she brought Norma Jeane to their rambling ranch house in Van Nuys. But of the several homes in which she would live the next few years, her warmest memory would be of the months spent at Grace McKee's Aunt Anna Lauer. Aunt Anna had kept for her the single symbol of life with her mother, the white piano. Known at 12 as Norma Jeane Stringbean, she attended Emerson Junior High near Aunt Anna's in Westwood, where she's remembered by her science teacher, Mabel Ella Campbell.
She was a youngster who looked as though she wasn't well cared for. Her clothes separated her a little bit from the rest of the girls. She was like a little girl, not well developed as some of the youngsters were. She just seemed like a nice child, but not very outgoing and not very vibrant.